Because of the COVID-19 outbreak, we have had to change many factors about the way we do work and the things that we do in our daily lives. We actually have seen many companies switch to a remote format where we have now been seeing companies like Twitter, Facebook, and Square say that their employees can now work home indefinitely, and we wanted to see if this would be a trend that would go forward. The person I'm talking to today is someone who has definitely had her fair share of experience with working remotely. She's also a longtime friend here at Dragon Rider Network, and I'm very happy to have her as the first guest here. Joining me live via Zoom, straight from Indianapolis, Indiana, is Irma Mesa. Irma, thank you so much for being here today.
I'm happy to be here. Excited.
So first of all, just to kind of break the tension, how are you out there? I know, a few months ago, it would have been just asking about COVID, but now there are the protests going on and just about a million other things going on in the world that have just been completely out of control lately. So how are you?
Yeah, it's been interesting few months. I think a lot has happened, and some of it has been out of our control. Some of it is made, promoted by us. At this point, it's kind of like just trying to keep positive, also trying to just show up and support and, amplify, Black voices and making sure that we're keeping this top of mind everywhere we are. And also a lot of companies have gone remote recently, so it's been interesting just to keep up on Twitter, till the end of the year. That's insane. But I'm glad it's happening. I think I've been waiting for this wave of remote work spreading like wildfire. Unfortunately, it had to come through COVID, but I think it's for the good, for the better of a lot of companies and the way that they work.
So it's actually been a while since we've actually sat down and talked with each other, and since then, one of the projects you have actually been working on is Cafecito. So would you be able to give me a rundown through that and give my audience a rundown through what Cafecito is?
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, that was my cat. Definitely happy to give a rundown on what I'm doing here. So I've been working, just for context, I've been working remote for 3 years, so since about 2017. And my first year working from home, didn't know what to do. There's no guideline out there telling us make sure you take breaks, make sure you do self-care, make sure you're taking your lunch and talking to people. So I spent my first year super isolated, and isolation leads to a lot of different challenges, whether it be mental health or physical, tons of different impacts out of that. And so my second year, I was like, I need to fix this. So this is not good for me. And so I just started to meet people every month. I would meet new people, trying to get out of my comfort zone, but also trying to bring back that socialization that I was missing from being in the office. So recently I've launched Cafecito, which is essentially a way for remote workers to come together over coffee. And so what we do is that we pair remote workers with the end goal of just solving isolation, or at least making it so it's not a huge challenge for folks that are working from home. And so what we do is that every week we match remote workers from all over the world based on their interests. So if you have an interest in engineering and traveling, we'll try to pair you up with somebody with those same interests or goals. And it's been really fun so far. Just, my big thing is if I can make an impact when it comes to remote work and getting people to socialize in a healthy way that's not disruptive to their work, that's why we're here. So
it almost sounds like a common room that you would find at a college campus or something, where you would see, there would be the people who would be into the video production and people who would be into English and communications and all of these other different factors. And you are kind of right. There hasn't really been kind of a way of connecting people, at least, I mean, you would have videos, where you would have the random video chat and all that, but again, those would dissolve into very
yeah.
very unfortunate places. But for something like this, it actually makes it where you are actually being introduced to people in a more productive setting,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's supposed to be, an intentional way of creating social opportunities. It's already really hard to find people to talk to, right? Yes, we have the internet, we have Twitter, but, we're not trying to go out there every day and message people and ask them to meet. That takes work. It also takes a lot of effort. You have to schedule things. So we take care of all of that kind of grunt work to make it easy and essentially no barrier way of entry for folks that just want a casual conversation with somebody, or maybe you want to talk about a specific project and get advice. So it's a really easy way every week, set up for a coffee break, get introduced to somebody new, and it's just 30 minutes. So it's 30 minutes every day to just have a conversation like we're having right now.
And you are absolutely spot on. In the 2 years that I've lived here in San Francisco, the one thing I've discovered is that of all the things that are the most hard about being a quote real adult, the absolute hardest thing is being able to just meet people outside of work or outside of your inner circle.
Yeah, I'm sure you've been to meetups before, meetup.com, maybe. There is, for me at least, as an introvert, it's been super difficult to create connections out of just going to a meetup, right? It's usually like a very surface level conversation where I'm telling you what I do for a living and you tell me what you do for a living. And then the meetup starts, and now where does that go, right? Like there's no follow up there. So we don't want to do that. We don't want to introduce more meetups that you have to attend and have no follow ups at the end of the day, or have no new connections. So we try very hard to make sure that every conversation that you have with us is meaningful. So matching you with people that share your interests is the best way to do that. Um, and yeah, we want to. That's my dog. We hope to keep growing, obviously. And if I can make this a tool that every remote worker uses, like monthly, that would be awesome. So that's what we're kind of like aiming towards.
So obviously, Cafecito is really born out of a place where, more people are starting to work from home. And, obviously before the pandemic, a lot of people were already working in an office. Did you see a trend of people beginning to work from home even before the pandemic, where more people started to work from home? Or is this really brought on, in your mind, more from the COVID outbreak?
Good question. So there seemed to be a small kind of leaning towards remote work in the past like 3 years that I've been in remote work. I think in the past year, I've seen more companies be a little bit more open to that, and in different ways, right? Like not fully remote, but I've seen companies say, "All right, we're going to have a hybrid environment," and so 2 days you work from home if you'd like. Or you have Fridays that was a work from home day, and then every other day you're working from the office. So I did see those trends happening before COVID. Due to COVID, though, there has been kind of like essentially a widespread of fully remote companies popping up now. So yes, I think the increase that we're seeing right now is definitely COVID, you know, lockdown driven. And for some companies, it'll stay that way if their employees have shown a positive kind of feedback and reaction to the working from home culture. I did read a statistic the other day that I think there's about I think like 46% of people that currently work from home today who didn't work from home before would like to work from home in some capacity when they go back to whatever normal is, right? So that kind of shows you how impactful remote work is, and that a lot of people can really excel in a remote environment.
So, like, obviously, not every job can work from home. Like the people, like back when I used to work at Target or Walgreens, those would be pretty hard jobs to work from home. For people who might be looking to change careers, are there any jobs out there that you've seen that really excel when working from home as opposed to working in an office?
So I would say from what I've seen, um, obviously tech jobs, like if you can do your work from a computer, like that's kind of like that entry to being able to do remote work. A lot of freelancers, consultants do very well when it comes to working from home because they can do their job out of their computer again. It gets trickier when you're looking at hospitality sort of jobs where you kind of have to be in person to make that work. So I would definitely say that it's most of the jobs will potentially be in tech, but even if you look at like law firms, right? If you look at the law industry, you could potentially still do your work from home. It's not a tech-based company, but you're still, I'm sure, like digital paperwork has to be done, legal forms signed online. So there are a number of jobs that you could potentially break into: virtual assistant, customer support. These are all jobs that you can essentially get into based on your previous experience. If it wasn't, you know, in a computer setting, but maybe it was at a retail store, potentially that could translate very well to a customer support job online. So I think it's all about being creative, which is not a cop-out answer, but I think it's like kind of being creative, like where is your skill set and how can you apply that skill set to a job that you can do digitally? And maybe you start with a contract and that kind of gives you the experience to then get into a part-time and then a full-time job. But there is opportunity out there, and but it's also really hard during this time where some companies have frozen hiring, other companies are ramping up hiring. So the interview processes right now are kind of all over the place if you're applying.
So, one of the things that I have definitely been thinking about is, during COVID, a lot of people who have never worked from home before have started working home now. And COVID is probably showing maybe some areas where working from home could be improved. Do you think there are any areas where working from home could be improved?
Yeah, definitely. One is the first one that comes to mind is isolation. And I will kind of keep harping on this one because it's like so, I want to solve it so badly. Isolation is hard to solve for. It's also a problem that every remote worker will face at one point or another. Being working on your own is super difficult. So I think another issue or problem with remote work is communication. So you're taking essentially a team that used to be in an office and had this like very dynamic way of speaking to each other whenever they wanted to in face-to-face settings, and now you're taking it so now you have to make an extra effort to say, okay, I'm going to get onto my messaging app, find this person, message them. They might not they might not reply to me for like the next 5 hours, but so it adds a lot of complexity to your work. And I do think there are a lot of cons with remote work, but I think they're cons that have solutions. So that's what I always say when I think of like remote work. Tons of positives, right? Great for the environment, no commute, cheaper for companies and for employees. So tons of positives, but when it comes to the cons, they're definitely there, and it's a pretty good list of challenges. But I think they all have a way to solve a solution to them. So I don't think they're impossible to solve for. Also, remote work isn't for everybody. Not everybody likes to work from home, even though there are a lot of pros to it. So the people that do stick with it, I think, are the people that are willing to like solve those challenges that they face day to day as a remote worker.
Yeah. And kind of related to that, because obviously there are some people who, like I've known like my fair share of people who I don't want to say I'm totally in this camp, but I'm partially in the camp of, if I'm at the office, I feel like I can get more done, or I feel like I have more resources at my disposal. Like, for remote workers, obviously something is gained from working remotely, but do you think offices have a capacity to kind of put themselves in an area of redemption where they can do things within an office that might make it worthwhile to maybe have some remote work, but then also reasons to go into the office?
That's a great point. I think that companies will probably try to get very creative on how they can keep people at the office. Certain things like free food and nap rooms, or like making it really attractive. So I definitely see that happening. I think it'll be hard though, honestly, because I think there's so many pros to being able to work from home. A lot of people are a lot more productive at home, especially if you're introverted. Like now you have peace and quiet to work. But I definitely do think companies are going to come out with programs and cool things that you can do at the office so that folks can be there more often. I'm interested to see what that is though.
Let me tell you, the free food thing, that's a huge plus for me. It's
every like breakfast, lunch, dinner, it's covered.
It's like here in the Bay Area, you go to any office and it's like my first time working in one of the offices out here, and they said like, oh yeah, like we have a free breakfast on Fridays. I'm like, you guys give us food?
I love this. Was it with the expectation that you should stay at the office for longer, or was it just like a perk?
I think it was both. I think there's definitely this idea that the more we can keep people in the office instead of them driving like 30 minutes or however long. I mean, even working right here in North Beach in San Francisco, I mean, there are restaurants all over the place. There are little shops and all that. Like, I hit up the Subway sandwich shop like every chance I can. But even that, I mean, takes you like 10 minutes to walk down there. If there's a huge line, it's always lunchtime. People are at the food trucks. Takes forever. And then you get back just in time to like very quickly eat it, and then you have to get back to your assignments. It's so obviously there is that perk, and then to have that every day and to be able to say it's like, oh, one of the perks here is that I really don't have to go grocery shopping anymore.
Yeah, exactly. It's a big, I mean, for some people it'll be a big one, right? And they'll put that over cooking breakfast at home, and that's okay. I think at the end of the day, it's up to the person, up to the employee. I think companies can obviously put those safeguards in place, and there'll be some folks that kind of flock to it, and other folks that are kind of like, I'm good. I like where I'm at. I'd rather make, breakfast at home and not get into my car at, rush hour. So it's definitely a variance between like the type of people that will, go towards those incentives or programs.
And just to kind of finish this interview on definitely like an upswing of a note, like after, the lockdown is finished, after all of this is said and done and social distancing is really starting to be lifted. I mean, it's kind of lifting now, but when it's safely lifted, I should say, what's one of the things that you're looking to do as soon as like everything starts reopening? Like what's one of the things that you've really missed over the last few months?
Yeah. So I one of the biggest things that I've missed has been we're usually taking like day trips. So we live in Indianapolis. It's super easy to get around to like Chicago, like 3.5 hours away, Kentucky, Ohio. So like I miss that. Like I miss just being able to say, all right, let's go take a day trip and go, here, here, and here, eat at these places, go to these coffee shops, explore this museum. And I miss that. Like I miss just that, I guess the spontaneous piece of just like not having to worry about like social distancing, having your mask on, bringing hand sanitizer with you. Yeah, that's like the first thing I might do once we have like some sort of things start to reopen again. And I was just keeping in my brain, like making sure I'm abiding to all of the, social distancing policies that we have, because they're super important. Like we need to follow them to, bring these cases down. But yeah, that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to is some nice road trips.
Strangely enough for me, and this sounds so weird for me being like the tech centric with all the streaming platforms and everything, I miss movie theaters. Like I absolutely miss movie theaters because, and it seems weird, but when you would be going to see a movie with a group of friends and then like you would all be able to react at the same time, as opposed to then watching it on your computer by yourself and then going, it's like, was this the part where I'm supposed to laugh or the part I'm supposed, and it's always, I mean, I've seen like Avengers Endgame and all that, it's not the same when it's just me clapping at the screen by myself in my apartment.
I get you. I do wonder how movie theaters are going to adapt to this. Because it's such an activity where you kind of, like you said, you do it in a group or like, 2 people or 3 people or whatever. And you're usually sitting like pretty close to each other because it's like an experience that you're trying to have together. So I do wonder how that'll kind of look like for movie theaters, if they're going to kind of have us like spread out like 3 seats apart or something. I don't know.
For Cafecito, what was the website name or the URL for that?
Yeah, you can find us over at meetcafecito.com, and you spell Cafecito Cafecito.
All right. Well, Irma, thank you so much for being here, and hopefully in another 10 or 20 years when I'm looking back on this, I'll be able to say, you know what? That was the beginning of like a very long and successful series, or I'll look back on it and say, wow, I did not shave for like a year for that video. And
hey, it's good results.
Irma, thank you so much for being here. If you want to see Cafecito, make sure you hit up the website, Meet Cafecito, Cafecito. Irma, thank you so much for being here.